The historical narrative of Sudan encompasses the territory that currently forms the Republic of the Sudan and the state of South Sudan, which achieved independence in 2011. Geographically, this territory is part of a larger African region also known as Sudan, a term derived from the Arabic phrase Bilad Saktan, meaning land of the black people. This designation has, at times, been applied more broadly, referring to the entire Sahel belt of West and Central Africa. The modern Republic of the Sudan was officially established in early 1956, inheriting its present boundaries from the Anglo-Egyptian Sudan, which had been set up in 1899. Before 1899, the term Sudan primarily referred to the Turkish Sudan and the Mahdist state, and it denoted a fluctuating territory situated between Egypt to the north and regions adjacent to modern Uganda, Kenya, and Ethiopia in the south. The history of the region prior to 1956 includes prehistory, the Kerma culture, c. 25th cent, BC 16th cent, BC. The New Kingdom of Egypt, 16th cent BC to 9th cent BC. The Kingdom of Kush, 9th cent BC, 4th cent AD. Christian Nubian kingdoms, 6th cent, 5th 10th cent. Islamization, c. 9th cent, 19th cent. Turco-Egyptian Sudan, 1820 to 1885. The Mahdist state, 1885 to 1899. And the Anglo-Egyptian Sudan, 1899 to 1956. I. Prehistory and early settlements. The earliest traces of human habitation in Sudan date back to the late Middle Paleolithic period. The archaeological site of Afad 23, located in the Afad region of southern Dagalo, Reach in northern Sudan holds the well-preserved remnants of prehistoric camps, including relics of the world's oldest open-air hut and various hunting and gathering locations, some dating back approximately 50,000 years. By the 8th millennium BC, a Neolithic culture developed a sedentary existence in the Nile Valley, settling in fortified mud brick villages. These inhabitants sustained themselves by supplementing hunting and fishing on the Nile with cattle herding and grain gathering. Around the 5th millennium BC, Neolithic people migrated into the Nile Valley from the drying Sahara, bringing agriculture with them. The population resulting from this cultural and genetic integration developed a social hierarchy over the subsequent centuries, eventually forming the Kingdom of Kush with its capital at Kerma, around 1070 BC anthropological. And archaeological evidence suggests that during the pre-dynastic period, c. 3300 BC, both Lower Nubia and Magadan Upper Egypt were nearly identical ethnically and culturally, and they simultaneously developed systems of pharaonic kingship. Sudan, alongside other Red Sea countries, is regarded as the most probable location of Punt, a land ancient Egyptians called Tanachero, God's plan. First mentioned in the 10th century BC, beyond the Nile Valley, eastern Sudan saw the emergence of several distinct cultures. The Butana group appeared around 4000 BC. These people were likely herdsmen and hunters, but they also consumed land snails and practiced some agriculture, producing simple decorated pottery and living in round huts. Later, the Gash group began around 3000 BC, known from multiple sites. They engaged in farming and cattle breeding, producing decorated pottery. Mahalteglinos was a significant Gash group site, spanning about 10 hectares, where excavated mud brick houses, seals, and seal impressions indicated a higher level of administration. Elite burials there were marked by rough tombstones. This was followed in the 2nd millennium by the Jebel Makram group, whose economy was primarily based on cattle breeding, living in simple round huts and producing pottery with straightforward incised decoration. 2. Antiquity. Kush and Meru. Northern Sudan is the location of several ancient kingdoms, and its earliest historical record originates from ancient Egyptian sources, which designated the land upstream as Kush. For more than 2 millennia after the Old Kingdom, c. 2700 to 2180 BC, Egypt exerted a dominant influence over its southern neighbor, and the cultural and religious legacy introduced by Egypt remained significant thereafter. Trade flourished over the centuries. Egyptian caravans transported grain to Kush and returned to Aswan carrying valuable commodities like ivory, hides, incense, and carnelian, a stone valued for jewelry and arrowheads. Egyptian governors prized gold found in Nubia and also valued Kushite soldiers for the pharaoh's army. While Egyptian military expeditions periodically entered Kush during the Old Kingdom, there was no sustained attempt to establish a permanent presence until the Middle Kingdom, c. 2100 to 1720 BC. During this era, Egypt built a network of forts along the Nile extending as far south as Samna in Lower Egypt, intended to safeguard the flow of gold from the mines in Walat, the area between the First and Second Cataracts. Around 1720 BC, the Middle Kingdom ended when Canaanite nomads known as the Hyksos took control of Egypt, cutting off ties with Kush and destroying the Nile forts. In the subsequent power vacuum, a culturally distinct indigenous Kushite kingdom emerged at Kerma, near modern-day Dagalo. When Egyptian power was restored during the New Kingdom, c. 1570 to 1100 BC, Pharaoh Ahmose I incorporated Kush as an Egyptian-ruled province administered by a viceroy. Although Egypt's direct administrative control reached only to the Fourth Cataract, Egyptian records mention tributary districts extending to the Red Sea and upstream to the confluence of the Blue Nile and White Nile rivers. Egyptian authorities maintained the loyalty of local chiefs by drafting their children to serve as pages at the pharaoh's court and demanded tribute, including golden workers, from the local Kushite leadership. As Egypt established political and military dominance over Kush, Egyptian officials, priests, merchants, and artisans settled in the region. The Egyptian language became widely used, and many wealthy Kushites adopted Egyptian gods, building temples that served as centers of official religious worship until the advent of Christianity in the 6th century. When Egyptian influence waned or succumbed to foreign rule, the Kushite elite viewed themselves as the core power and upheld themselves as symbols of Egyptian culture and religion. By the 11th century BC, the authority of the New Kingdom dynasties diminished, resulting in divided rule in Egypt and ending Egyptian control over Kush. After the withdrawal of the Egyptians, there is a gap of 3 centuries without any written record or information regarding Kushite activities in the region. Kush resurfaced in the early 8th century BC as an independent kingdom ruled from Napata by a line of assertive monarchs who gradually extended their power into Egypt. Around 750 BC, the Kushite king Kashta conquered Upper Egypt, ruling Thebes until approximately 740 BC. His successor, Pi, conquered Egypt by subduing the Nile Delta, initiating the 25th dynasty. This dynasty established a line of kings who governed Kush and Thebes for about a century. Their involvement in Assyria's sphere of influence in the Near East led to conflict with the powerful Assyrian state, which governed a vast empire encompassing much of the Middle East, Anatolia, the Caucasus, and the Eastern Mediterranean basin. Taharqa, 688 to 663 BC. The final Kushite pharaoh was defeated and expelled from the Near East by Sennacherib of Assyria. Sennacherib's successor, Esarhaddon, launched a full invasion of Egypt in 674 BC, quickly conquering the land and defeating Taharqa. Taharqa subsequently fled back to Nubia, while the Assyrians installed native Egyptian princes as vassals of Esarhaddon. However, Taharqa managed to return years later, regaining control of a part of Egypt, reaching as far as Thebes. Esarhaddon died in Nineveh while preparing to return to Egypt to once again drive out the Kushites. Ashurbanipal, Esarhaddon's successor, dispatched a general with a small army that again defeated and expelled Taharqa from Egypt. Taharqa died in Nubia 2 years later. His successor, Tantamani, attempted to reclaim Egypt, successfully defeating Necho I, the Assyrian puppet ruler, and capturing Thebes. However, the Assyrians responded by sending a powerful army southwards, heavily routing Tantamani and sacking Thebes to such a degree that it never fully recovered. A native ruler, Samtik I, was then placed on the throne as a vassal of Ashurbanipal, concluding the Kushite Nubian Empire. Egypt's subsequent dynasty failed to fully reassert control over Kush. Around 590 BC, an Egyptian army sacked Napata, prompting the Kushite court to relocate further south to Meru, near the Sixth Cataract, a more secure location. For several centuries, the Meroitic kingdom thrived independently, separated from Egyptian influence, which later fell under Iranian, Greek, and then Roman domination. At its peak in the 2nd and 3rd centuries BC, Mero's territory stretched from the Third Cataract in the north down to Soba, close to modern Khartoum in the south. The Egyptian-influenced pharaonic tradition continued among the Meroitic rulers, who raised stelae to document their achievements and constructed Nubian pyramids for their tombs. The ruins of palaces, temples, baths, and these pyramids attest to a centralized political system that utilized the skills of artisans and commanded a large labor force. An effective irrigation system allowed the area to support a significantly higher population density than was possible in later periods. By the 1st century BC, Egyptian hieroglyphs were replaced by a Meroitic alphabet, adapted for the Nubian-related language spoken by the populace. The succession system in Meru was not necessarily hereditary. Often, the matrilineal royal family member deemed most suitable became king. The Kandake, or Queen Mother, held a critical role in ensuring smooth succession. The crown appeared to pass from brother to brother or sister, and only when no siblings remained did it pass from father to son. Although Napata remained the religious heart of Meru, the northern regions of Kush eventually destabilized due to pressure from the Blemis, nomads who arrived from east of the Nile. Nonetheless, the Nile continued to provide access to the Mediterranean world. Meru also maintained contact with Indian and Arab traders along the Red Sea coast, integrating Hellenistic and Indian cultural influences into daily life. Evidence, though inconclusive, suggests that metallurgical technology may have spread westward to West Africa from Meridia's iron smelteries across the Savannah Belt. Mero's relationship with Egypt was not always peaceful. Following Mero's incursions into Upper Egypt, a Roman army moved south and destroyed Napata in 23 BC. The Roman commander, however, quickly abandoned the territory, judging it too poor for sustained colonization. In the 2nd century AD, the Nobasha occupied the Nile's west bank in northern Kush. They are thought to have been one of several heavily armed groups of horse and camel-borne warriors who offered protection services to Meru. They eventually intermarried with the Meroitic people, establishing themselves as a military aristocracy. Rome subsidized the Nobasha until nearly the 5th century, using Meru as a buffer zone against the Blemis. The Meroitic kingdom gradually shrank due to the expansion of the powerful kingdom of Aksum to the east. By 350 AD, King Ezana of Aksum captured and demolished the Meru capital, ending its independent existence and conquering its territory. 3. Medieval Nubia, c. 3501-500. Around the turn of the 5th century, the Blemis established a short-lived state in Upper Egypt and Lower Nubia, possibly centered around Tanis Kalabsha, but they were expelled from the Nile Valley by the Nobatians before 450. The Nobatians subsequently founded their own kingdom, Nobasha. By the 6th century, the region comprised 3 Nubian kingdoms, Nobasha in the north with its capital at Pachoras, Faras. The central kingdom, Makuria, centered at Tungo, Old Dongola, and Elodia located in the core region of the Old Cushitic Kingdom with its capital at Soba, a present-day Khartoum suburb. All 3 kingdoms converted to Christianity in the 6th century. Nobasha was later incorporated into Makuria in the 7th century, likely between 628 and 642. Between 639 and 641, the Muslim Arabs of the Rashidun Caliphate conquered Byzantine Egypt. They invaded Nubia in 641 or 642, and again in 652, but were repelled, making the Nubians among the few groups to defeat the Arabs during the Islamic expansion. Following these conflicts, the Makurian king and the Arabs agreed to the Pact, a unique non-aggression pact that included an annual exchange of gifts, thereby acknowledging Makuria's independence. While the Arabs failed to conquer Nubia, they began settling east of the Nile, founding several port towns and intermarrying with the local Beju people. Christian Nubia experienced its golden age from the mid-8th century to the mid-11th century, a period when its political power and cultural development peaked. In 747, Makuria invaded Egypt, then controlled by the declining Umayyads, and again in the early 960s, pushing as far north as Akhmin. Makuria maintained close dynastic relationships with Alodia, possibly leading to the temporary unification of the two kingdoms into a single state. The culture of the medieval Nubians is described as Afro-Byzantine, with the African elements increasing in significance over time. Growing Arab influence was also observed. The state administration was highly centralized, modeled on the Byzantine bureaucracy of the 6th and 7th centuries. Arts thrived, particularly in the form of pottery paintings and wall paintings. The Nubians developed their own alphabet for their language, Old Nubian, basing it on the Coptic alphabet while also utilizing Greek, Coptic, and Arabic. Women enjoyed a high social standing. They had access to education, could own, buy, and sell land, and frequently used their wealth to fund church paintings and churches. Even the royal succession followed a matrilineal system, where the king's sister's son was the rightful heir. Beginning in the late 11th-12th century, Makuria's capital, Dongola, started to decline, and Alodia's capital also declined in the 12th century. The 14th and 15th centuries saw Bedouin tribes overrun much of Sudan, migrating into the Gezira, the Butana, Darfur, and Kordofan. The earliest recorded migration from Egypt into the Sudanese Nile Valley dates to 1324. In 1365, a civil war compelled the Makurian court to flee to Gebel Ada in Lower Nubia. Dongola was subsequently destroyed and ceded to the Arabs. Makuria continued to exist as a rump state afterwards. Joel, the last known Makurian king, is recorded in 1463 and 1484, under whom